how do we have the grit to break through barriers and unstick our minds? That is the topic that we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager. Flourish-Meant is sponsored by Access More. Today, I have a learned and brilliant and very experienced guest. Her name is Mimika Cooney. She's a certified John Maxwell coach and consultant. She's equipped also with advanced training in behavioral analysis and brain science. She's also a 25-year entrepreneur, the author of 10 published books, and a 10-year veteran podcast host of the Mimika TV show. So welcome, Mimika. I am so honored to have you on this podcast. As you know, you have plenty of other accolades I could have listed here, but I had to keep it short. However, I am fascinated about this topic of how to deal with your mindset through brain science and faith at the same time. What led you into wanting to zero in on this specific area that people need to hear about?
Definitely. Well, thanks for having me on the show again. I know we had connected a couple of years ago, so this is always exciting to be able to talk about this. And I know we both love this topic of mindset. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is about 7 years ago, I was really challenged in my own life. I was doing all the thing, being an entrepreneur, running my business, and I got challenged with a few things that happened, like between losing a family member to cancer, a business challenge, as well as a child in crisis. And I'd realized I had been pushing myself until I actually burnt out and broke down. And the whole process is, God in his graciousness gives us grace in the moment that we know we need it. And sometimes when we don't even know we need something. And he took me through this process of inner healing. And as I dove into what exactly the things that were holding me back, because I'm a fixer, I like to find out what the deal is and, get to the bottom of it. I'd realized that my mindset was a hot mess. My thought patterns, the way that I was raised, or my environment, or my experiences had created what I call this programming in my mind. Like, we all have those tapes that go over and over and over in our mind. And sometimes they're not true, but we are not taught to challenge it. So as I started to go into this process, I really got fascinated with neuroscience, how the brain works. What does it mean physiologically, holistically? Like, how do we become a healthy person, mind, body, and soul? And it took me down this path of learning all the things, and went back to school, got certified as a coach, as well as brain health, and did all that studies. And for the last sort of 3.5 years, I've been coaching, and I've been testing this with clients and seeing how they could put these practical steps into place in their life by aligning themselves with their purpose, their God-given vision of who God made them to be. And I like to call it resetting to your factory settings of who God made you before life got hold of us, and really reimagining. And in this scientific area, we call it rewiring your brain and retraining ourselves. And really, for me, I take Romans 12:2 seriously. Renew your mind daily. It's not just a once and done thing. So this whole process really got me to that point of thinking, there has to be a way that this makes sense. And if God talks about it, it must be important. And that's what got me doing what I'm doing today. So now I write books, and I teach courses, and I train people. And I'm just really excited, especially for us believers, to really tap into the skills that are needed, as well as the power that is unlocked when we know we are working and living at our full potential. We're not letting that old stinking thinking, as Joyce Myers would say, that old programming just keep us looping on repeat in a pattern that we don't want. So that's really what makes me excited.
So what are some red flags that can cue us in to knowing we are stuck in our minds and we need to start taking these steps to get that grit, to break those barriers, to renew our minds, as you said?
Definitely. Well, the term grit is not used often enough. And the reason why is that I feel like so many of us in this modern society are just taught that everything's a quick fix, just everything's microwavable, just a quick flick, just do this. And all of a sudden all your greatest dreams will come true. And, in practicality, that isn't how it works. And we've lost this essence of what grit means. And grit means it's really the essence of resilience and perseverance, being able to put up with hard stuff, to do the work, even if it's uncomfortable, in order to get to the other side. And we give up too easily. And unfortunately, I think the church has been a lot to blame, in that it's kept telling us, and the sort of the message that we're broken. You're broken, you're broken, you're broken. So you need to come to church on Sunday. You need to just kind of do your thing, tick your box, and then go back to your usual life and then come back and do it again next week. And I'm like, I have a problem with that. I want to be trained and healed and move on. That was Jesus's whole message, is complete healing and deliverance, right? And having that grit to see it through, that we've become a society of avoidance. And really what it is, our brains are wired to avoid discomfort because that's from a survival mechanism. And modern society has just made it easy just to give up. So I think really it's being able to really embrace the seasons we're in, put our boots to the ground and do the work that needs to be done, whether it's working on our mind, readjusting our thought patterns, how we speak, and really being willing to go back and say, you know what, I am aware. Well, first of all, it's getting the awareness, but I need to fix this. And that I'm not broken. I don't have to stay this way. I can change. And I think that's the greatest hope people need to hear, is that you are not stuck with the brain you were born with. You can, with God's help, go through a complete, reset and inner healing. But we have to have the grit to see it through, because, there's a lot of sweat equity involved. Sometimes there's tears, well, there will be tears, and there's a lot of effort where you have to keep persisting even when you don't see your immediate results. And I think if we can embrace the idea of grit and saying, you know what, I know I want to break through, but it's not going to happen on the first swing or the second or the third. It might take years. But if we just keep consistently showing up without the expectation of an instant win, but just that perseverance to try, I really think He rewards that. He rewards our faith, and He rewards the faithful. And I think really that is the essence of Christian resilience, is sticking with it long enough to know that you're going to see it through, especially when God has given you a promise. Our job is to just put boots on the ground and do the work. And His job is to partner with us and help us see it through.
So how could the church do better at addressing this concept of grit among a people in the United States, especially, that seem to worship our own comfort?
Yes, very good point. And I think that is the big issue right now, is that we do worship comfort, and we just don't want to be uncomfortable. We just want to pop a pill when we have pain. We don't want to deal with the pain or ask, why am I having pain? You have a headache, oh, make it go away. And I think that is the biggest problem, is we don't need quick fixes. We need long-lasting solutions. And what we need is discipleship and discipline. People don't like those words. They don't like the thought of having to be disciplined enough to do something or not do something. We just want to be placated and say, okay, it's fine. It'll be great. Just, pray and leave it to Jesus. That's great. But what does that mean? Like, I'm a practical person. I'm like, okay, God, what does it mean to pray and let you do your thing? He will take you through this process, but we have to be willing to take the blinders off and say, okay, something's not working. What I need to do? And what is it that I need allow God to do? And to be trained through discipleship and making these things practical. Like, what does it mean to renew your mind? It means to catch those thoughts. Like when that runaway train goes, oh my God, I'm going to have a bad day. You're going to go, no, God's word says, and you list. That's exactly what Jesus did, right? He listed the word and what God said I am. God says I'm loved. God says I'm favored. And this is what God says I am. So not today, Satan. I'm not dealing with that. You can erase that thought, delete that, and work through that. But we need to be taught this as habits and as a new way of a pattern of thinking. And I think the sooner we can embrace that as a discipleship walk, the sooner we'll start to see breakthrough.
When we're talking about walks, it makes me think about the journey of the Israelites out of Egypt toward the promised land, when they felt so comfortable with what was familiar, even though it was toxic, that they wanted to go back to Egypt instead of enduring the hardships in the desert. Sometimes people don't know that they have a stuck mind because they're so familiar with how they feel in that place. What are some examples that would give us clues that our minds might be stuck, and yet we're trying to stay in Egypt instead of getting free?
Definitely. Well, some common signs that you do have a stuck mindset is that you're unwilling to change. You get very defensive when something is presented to you and you feel like, oh no, that's not me. Or you are in denial. And our denial is one of those really funny things where, we all have blind spots, but we're blind to them because we can't see them. And being willing, I really think the whole thing comes down to, are you willing and open to being challenged with your way of thinking and doing things? And are you open to criticism? So people who are very defensive, it's usually a very big sign, and pride prideful, like, oh no, I don't have that problem. Oh, that's not me. That's usually a sign that there's, something wrong. And then of course, another thing of feeling stuck is that nothing is moving in frustration. I mean, if anyone's ever been in a season of hope deferred where you feel like you're in the wilderness, in the desert, nothing's happening. Sometimes it's not us waiting on God, it's God waiting on us. So if we are willing to say, okay, what is the problem? Let me look at myself objectively, take the emotion out of it, and be willing to hear the truth, then we can really move forward. It all starts with awareness. Awareness is key.
So, how could people get in touch with you to access your resources and your new book if they are experiencing these symptoms?
Sure. Well, the best place to get in touch with me is online, is my website, which is mimikacooney.com, spelled MIMIKACOONEY.com. And it lists, I have a whole bunch of free resources. I have articles I've written. I've got a free download, 8 tips to supercharge your mindset, and as well as my list of books. And I also have my own YouTube channel. So come and subscribe to Mimika TV. I have bite-sized information I put out there all the time to really encourage you. So hopefully that's some great resources to get everyone set up on the path. And then, of course, on social, I'm everywhere at Mimika Cooney. So come and look me up online.
I hope that all of you listening and watching were inspired to find your own grit and unstick your minds. And of course, I also hope that you come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.